Again,
Hello,
back again.
live again. We're back.
More testing.
More testing. Yeah, if you are seeing us, joining us via LinkedIn, via YouTube, Twitch, Facebook in the Entree Architect community, and hopefully Instagram this time as well. My name is Jeff Echols. I'm joined by Mark R. LePage. And just like last week, we did this last week, last Friday morning, same time as we're doing this now, and we're doing a tech test. That's hard to say.
Luckily,
test. Yeah, luckily we're doing a test. Mark and I are experimenting with how to connect with architects, how to connect with a larger audience where the audience is. So we're streaming live right now, hopefully, to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. And like I said a minute ago, the real reason is to meet architects and build a community where you are. We're coming to you instead of asking you to come to us. So if you see us, if you hear us out there, let us know. Let us know that that you do. Let us know that you see us, that you hear us. Drop a comment in the comment section wherever you are. And we will, hopefully we'll see those comments. All right. Got Brian already. Hi, Brian. Welcome back.
I'm signing on to the different channels. So I keep looking for the volume on each channel because as I open them up, the volume is on. So you're hearing an echo when I do that. So as I do it, we are on Twitch. We are on Instagram.
Oh, great. All right. So the Instagram worked. That's a good thing.
But Instagram, I can't find the volume, the mute button on Instagram.
So keep looking for the volume on each channel. Open them up. The volume is on. So you're hearing
I don't know. You know what? I'm going through Instagram on my computer. That might be part of the problem.
Yeah.
My desktop. Let's go through the app like Instagram wants us to.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing, any of you that joined us last week, we were testing some things out. Obviously, we were learning some things. What we have learned is, and I see Javier over there on Facebook, what we have learned is that we'll have to watch Facebook natively in order to see names that go along with comments. Facebook won't allow the information because we're streaming to a private group. Facebook won't allow the user information to leave Facebook. So we'll try to manage that in two different screens here. But if we can't figure out, if you're watching on Facebook and you comment and we don't figure out who it is, I apologize in advance. That's something we'll have to find a workaround for. But I've got two screens open right now. I'll try to juggle those. Rod, all right.
It also looks like on Instagram, it's coming through stories, your stories at Jeff_Echols. But it's showing up as a square. And so all it's showing is the blue and white background shoulders.
Okay.
If I do this, you might see my hand.
So what happens if I change? Well, that made it worse, maybe. Let's see, what else can we do? All right, we'll have to play with that. So like I said at the beginning, we're still experimenting. What we're trying to accomplish here is expand the community of architects and meet architects where they are on the platforms where they prefer to be. We've got a thriving community inside the Entree Architect community Facebook group, which we're streaming to live right now. But we also know that there are plenty of architects that don't love Facebook and would prefer not to go to Facebook. So that's one reason that we're streaming to LinkedIn, to YouTube, to Instagram, and other places. We know there's a community of architects on all of these platforms. We're wondering about Twitch. We're experimenting with Twitch, but that's the purpose for doing what we're doing right now. Carla Hill, great to see you, Carla. She's out there on LinkedIn. Looks like Rob's on YouTube, and we're also just figuring things out. What's the future of all of this stuff? What's the future of streaming and building community? I see Kurt. Hi, Kurt from Flint, Michigan. Thanks for joining us on Facebook. For those of you that aren't familiar, I host a show on the Entree Architect Community Facebook group, or in that group, every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern, called Context and Clarity Live. And so you have to get inside the group in order to see that. But we wanted to see, how far can we push this? Can we build this? Can we build a community even broader, even outside of the Facebook group community?
Yeah. We want to take what's great about that daily conversation that you do at 4 p.m. Eastern time every day inside the Facebook group, which is super successful, super engaged, super exciting to see what's happening there. It's sort of a community within a community, right? The Context and Clarity crew inside the Facebook group. But that's a private conversation that happens every day. That's inside a private group. The comments that are in that group stay in that group, so we don't share anything that's in that group outside of the group. But we want to take sort of what the momentum has happened in there, the spark that's happened at that daily conversation, and see if we can make things like that happen outside of the group. And so we're working on some plans for 2021, probably very early, and maybe in January, maybe launching some additional Context and Clarity content outside of the Facebook group. Not that conversation. That conversation will remain and will continue at 4 o'clock every day. We'll stay private. But we're thinking about some additional content for you inside the Facebook group and outside the Facebook group to not only reach as many architects as we can, but also have some of that Context and Clarity conversation go a little deeper, go a little bit wider, and maybe bring in some experts, which is why we're looking at video. Right, and being able to simulcast across the internet, across the world, right, throughout the entire world right now, having a conversation where we can imagine that Jeff can take that Context and Clarity concept and take it to the next level in an interview format where you bring in a guest, have a conversation, go deep on a specific topic. Maybe it's one of the topics we discussed in the discussion, in the conversation. Maybe it's not, and go deeper, right? So we can all learn from an expert, and because it's live, we can have a live interaction, just like you do in that conversation every day, where we can have these comments. People could be commenting on that live discussion. Maybe even have phone call-ins and have people participate live on the call, like a radio show. All of those ideas are up in the air. And so it's possible, all possibilities, which is why we're experimenting here, right? There's no plan here. There's no agenda other than, coming on and making sure that tech works, which it does look like everything is working this week. Facebook is working, Instagram is working, but not formatted properly. I'm not sure if there's a way to fix that, or whether I'm just not looking at it right. But Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch are all streaming live and working well.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we've accomplished a couple of things. But, you said something a minute ago that's really important. This actually came up, I think it was last week, in the Context and Clarity conversation. So that idea of conversation. that's the reason that we're doing this in this way. We could do a show. I could host a show with a guest and do it interview style, similar to the Entree Architect podcast.
Right.
You have guests on the podcast all the time, and you interview those guests, and they're fantastic conversations. But what we want to make sure that we don't lose as we expand the offerings, as we expand the content offerings here, is that we don't lose the conversation.
Right.
And that's why it's really important for us to test this tech in this way, because by all indications, it looks like we'll be able to stream to 4 or 5 different platforms at the same time and get real-time interaction. Sure, I can have a conversation with Mark or whoever the expert is at the time, and we can dig into a topic, but you can also join the conversation. You can ask questions, we can answer your questions, you can make comments, give feedback, et cetera. And I think that's a really important aspect of context and clarity and what we've been building there. And so that's what we want to make sure that we're not losing. And I call it a conversation all the time because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And that's the core. That's the core of context and clarity. It's about the community, right? It's about it's about coming from the community and going out rather than bringing what's out there into the community. Where Entree Architect, I bring in a guest, we have a great conversation, and then we push it out to the community so they can consume it, they can learn from it, they can benefit from it. Where context and clarity, the idea is there's a community, right? Mm-hmm. It's about the community. That conversation foremost is about the community, not the topic. The community comes first, then the topic comes to the community. Taking that concept and bringing it bigger and making it wider, it's still about the conversation, which is why it's live, right? You can very easily just record this, make it much cleaner, edit what you don't want, make it perfect, and then push it out there for consumption. This is a way for us to interact with the community on a wider basis and go deeper by bringing in an expert. One of the things that you often talk about in that daily conversation is let's find somebody who knows what they're talking about on this topic. Mm-hmm. And this is the way we can do that. Right. We can have that conversation. That can be, let's learn more about that. And then we go out and find somebody who is an expert in that in the world. And really, we're talking about, Jeff and I are really planning on this becoming a platform where we can really reach out to the biggest experts in the world. Mm-hmm. Right, because we'll have thousands of architects who are here to learn, right? And we can reach out to the Don Millers, and we can reach out to the Dave Ramseys, and we can reach out to leaders in the world and bring them into this conversation and bring them to the community and let the community interact with them directly. It's really exciting.
Yeah, those are all great points. I mean, a few days ago we were covering a topic, and this comes up from time to time. Anytime. So let me back up. If you're not familiar with Context and Clarity Live, if you've never attended or participated in one of those sessions, what we do is we pick one topic every day, every weekday, and sometimes I call it, since I see Rod's name there, I call it our week daily mini mastermind group. But we take one topic every day that falls under the broad umbrella of the business of architecture, and we dig into that topic. And, sometimes those topics get a little bit outside the depth of us as a collective. If we start talking about some legal things, if we start talking about some tax things, some things that require some specific expertise. We were talking about publishing fees several days ago. Maybe it was late last week. I don't remember now, but there you go.
It's not
context and clarity. Sometimes on those topics, we have to simply rely on the collective experience, the collective opinions, and things like that, and it would be helpful. Can we actually get someone that an attorney, as a for instance, for a legal matter or something like that? And so that's one of the reasons that we're talking about this idea of bringing in an expert. Pick a topic, like Mark said, maybe it's a topic that came from the prior week in Context and Clarity Live, and really dig even deeper into that topic by having an expert, by bringing all of you into the conversation, letting you ask questions, to just make for a richer conversation.
Yeah, there's a conversation. There's a post right now. It's not part of the Context and Clarity. It's part of the community. There's a post in there that went in, I think, yesterday, talking about copyright infringement. And one of our members had a project, and the project was canceled. And then he found out that the project was being built. And so he had done all the right things in terms of his contract and filing copyright when they canceled the project. He did everything right. And they went in and they did it behind his back. And so he went to talk to his attorney and found out that he didn't have the right language in his contract to protect him. He did everything right. He had all the right language that he thought he needed. And because of some of the changes in the law recently, he didn't have a case because of recent decisions in copyright. And so things like that could be a perfect place for that conversation to happen here. We go out and we find the foremost, copyright trademark attorney in the world and bring him on and say, what's changed and what do we need to do as architects to protect our work from being copied and not being able to file the suit and win. There's no way that member should not be able to go to court and collect on his copyright, but because of some changes which he didn't know about, he doesn't have a case, and he's probably lost $100,000 in fees because of it.
Yeah, that's a great example. I'll in just a minute I'll kind of list off some of the topics we've talked about recently, but Demetrius, thank you for checking on the YouTube quality. Appreciate it. One thing I'm noticing is that on YouTube we get the usernames, but they're but sometimes like D1N75. Greetings to you. Thank you for joining us. But I don't see an actual name that goes with that username. So that may be a struggle that we have down the road.
Well, in YouTube, I think you use the Google username that you sign in with.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so if D1N75 is that person's username, that's what's going to pop up. Whereas, Demetrius is having a conversation, is commenting using his Spaces podcast user name, which you should go subscribe to, Spaces podcast on YouTube, and the podcast on where you listen to podcasts. Mm-hmm. It's a great podcast.
Yes,
also,
it is.
Just for clarification, Demetrius is also my co-founder at Gable Media, but that is a non-biased comment endorsement to go subscribe.
Yeah, absolutely. Carla's got an interesting comment here, and so Carla Hill and I have known each other for a lot of years now, and appreciate you joining us today, Carla. She says this reminds me of a recent survey. A large indie organization. So Indianapolis is where Carla and I live. A large indie organization recently did a survey, and they asked the architecture and engineering community how transparent they had been and whether it was open-ended enough. Many people commented that it wasn't super transparent. We have more strengths for things like that when we work together. Yeah, and I think, just like Mark was talking about, being able to bring these experts in to talk about issues like the one he mentioned about copyright. It's really important to understand that if if you go inside the Entree Architect Community Facebook group and you participate in a Context and Clarity Live session, and Mark was explaining this a few minutes ago, those conversations stay within that Facebook community. They're not shared outside of that. It's a safe space for you to comment and say whatever you need to say, ask whatever questions you need to ask. It will obviously be different in this format because we're streaming across multiple platforms. And so we don't have that veil of privacy, if that's what, I don't know if that's even the right thing to call it, but we don't have that veil of privacy when we're streaming across YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitch and Instagram. So keep that in your mind. But to Carla's point, I think the ability to draw into the conversation everybody on all of these platforms and open this conversation up to wherever it is that you are. Maybe you say, "Hey, I love Twitch. Great, we're going to be on Twitch. We've got some more work to do to figure it out." ZT Andrew 1125 is offering to make us famous. Maybe we'll have to take his offer up
we
there.
can buy followers on Twitch.
There you go.
Bigfollow.com. Oh, I just gave him a plug.
There you go.
That was the point.
We've got a second offer for that as well. But but I think this gives us an opportunity, and that's one thing that you experience inside the closed Facebook group is that people, and we did this, it was just yesterday. One of our topic in Context and Clarity Live was how do you avoid burnout? And the level of transparency and vulnerability with which people were able to discuss and tell their stories and remember things and make their suggestions, I think is really important. I really felt that yesterday's conversation was one of those that even if you weren't in that conversation live, of course you can always watch the replay version, but I think conversations like that can be extremely helpful to people. Obviously the idea of burnout is a mental and physical health issue that we were talking about yesterday. It's a real thing for architects, and especially for small firm architects, but also all kinds of other people as well. And so my encouragement to everybody yesterday was, if you know somebody that needs this, invite them. Tell them, hey, this was the topic. Go to the Facebook group and watch the replay and read the comments. Become a part of that conversation, because it can be very, very helpful. And I want the same thing. Again, understanding that you're not behind the veil of privacy when we're streaming across all the channels like this, but I do want this to be a platform that's available to everyone and that's helpful to everyone. I really do think we have the ability to support architects and others in professional services like they've never been supported before, and because this is me, and because this is Mark, and because this is Entree Architect, we also, this might be a little bit of a rebellious statement here, but we also don't have to play by the rules of any associations. It's us, right? This isn't some organization that we're having to make sure that we're checking all of their boxes and all of those things. And so we can have very real, very transparent, very open conversations about whatever we want to here, as long as we're following the rules of the different platforms. I guess it's important to say that.
Yeah,
we have to follow the Facebook rules and the LinkedIn rules and things like that.
And the group rules, because there are, although it's a transparent group, there are rules, and they're essentially rules to keep the culture strong, right? It's a group of support and encouragement.
It is.
It's a group of positivity. And so whether you disagree or agree with somebody, you're not allowed to bully. You're not allowed to be aggressive. You're not allowed to have, you can have a debate, we're not allowed to. There are other places on the internet, hundreds of thousands of other places you can go and have those arguments. We're here to support one another as a group.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what that group is intended to be. And I don't know of another place. There may be other places for architects to go that you can have hundreds of architects have a conversation, open and honest and transparent about what we're doing and how we're doing it. Even in a live conversation, that would be very difficult to do. I mean, you can do that with 2 or 3 people live in a private, forum. But you can't do that at a chapter meeting somewhere, right? You can't do that. It's not happening anywhere else. And so it's to have a private place where you can go and ask the question, right? You're dealing with something right now, and I don't know how to solve it. I'm in that private, and I'm going to ask thousands of architects if they've ever dealt with that, and what should I do? And you'll get all kinds of responses, right? You'll get responses on both sides, right? Of whatever question you ask. But then you have a lot of information to be able to make a decision based on the experience of what people have gone through.
Yeah. Those are really good points. Yes, obviously, we also do have to adhere to the rules of the EntreArchitect community Facebook group, and like Mark said, disagreements are fine. We've got no problem with disagreements, and we debate some things at times inside in the Context and Clarity live sessions, but the line is that there's no hate. There's no bullying, like Mark said. Disagreement is healthy. It's how we figure things out. And what's a good example? We talk about we talk about fees on a fairly regular basis. How do you figure your fees? What methodology do you use? Do you publish your fees? Do you raise your fees? How often do you? We did that just the other day. When was the last time you reevaluated, took a look at what your fees were? And there are plenty of disagreements between. Hey, I absolutely just prefer to do an hourly rate, and somebody else's, I don't think an hourly rate is a good thing to do. I do a percentage of construction cost or whatever, right? That just a real simple example. There's no problem with disagreements whatsoever. It's just we don't cross that line into bullying or hate or anything like that. If you've never been a part of one of the Context and Clarity live sessions, just to give you a taste, we do this for an hour, and it's not at all uncommon for us to have at least 30 people live at the same time as part of this conversation, 130, 160, 180 comments within an hour. So they're very lively, they're very engaged conversations. And like I said earlier, we do pick a topic every day that falls under the very broad umbrella, but the business of architecture, helping architects build better businesses. And I say this every day inside Context and Clarity, encouraging people to suggest topics. So if you're struggling with something, whatever it is, even figuring out, how to hire a bookkeeper, whatever it is, if you're struggling with something, there's somebody else in the community that struggles with that same thing. So that's a great topic idea. If you have a question about something, there's somebody else that has that same question. So that's a great topic idea. If you just learn something, oh wow, I just learned this. This has changed the way I'm doing this. Somebody else needs to learn that. So that's also a great topic idea. No matter what platform you're on, I'm happy to accept friend requests, connection requests, whatever it's called on the platform, and messages. Send me a message, make a suggestion. And if you ever have something, let's just say you're struggling with something right now, or you have a question with something right now. Again, that's a great topic idea, but maybe you don't want people to know that's what you're struggling with. That's fine. Just let me know that you'd like to remain anonymous. Yep. I get plenty of those. I would say that at least 50%, maybe even a majority of the suggestions that are messaged to me come up and they say, hey, I want to remain anonymous, that's no problem. I'm very happy to honor that. And no one knows who those topics came from. No one knows that it was you that suggested that or asked that question or struggling with that. And if you're okay with it, I'll give you a shout out. Hey, Mark, Mark inspired or Mark suggested this topic today, but if that's not the case, then your name is not attached to it in any way. So those are just some of the ways that it works. We've got a few more. Rod switched over from YouTube to Facebook, and Jake, hi Jake.
I think he was on Twitch.
Oh,
he was twitching.
Okay, so he switched over now to Facebook. He says he's walking his dog, but he forgot his coffee. Rod also says that ArtConnect used to be my favorite site for years, but is geared more towards student and academia and snark now. That's too bad about the snark, I guess. Although there's some room for snark. Demetrius says the YouTube quality looks better this week, and it looks like the previous test was clearer on the publish. So it's probably compression during live cast. Yeah, and I think so. Again, we're researching, we're experimenting, we're trying to learn some things, and I think we did find that YouTube is compressing as and maybe quite a lot, but it's also a setting on your end. You can change the resolution. If you're in YouTube, you can go to your little gear and change the resolution that you're seeing it in. I don't honestly know what effect that's going to have. You may find more hiccups if you bump the resolution up. I'm not sure.
By default, it's set to auto, and so it finds where the highest resolution that you can reliably watch YouTube. It will set it, but you can override that. But it may chop up your what you're watching. It may not be able to you may not have enough bandwidth to bring the whole feed in clearly. It'll adjust. So if the clarity is not right, it's probably because it's adjusted down to 480 or whatever it is, 460. And it's a very low resolution, but you're being able to hear it and watch it. If you wanted a clearer resolution, you could bump it up. You'll get a clearer resolution, but you may start to be choppy.
Yeah. Those are good points. And again, if you this is us experimenting. This is us checking out the technology. If you see anything like that, hey, it'd be or this is a problem, or this is what I'm seeing, just please drop it in the comments, because that helps us. It's really hard for us to look at all the platforms and test them out while we're doing this live. So any suggestions you have are very much appreciated. Like I said earlier, we're trying, and I think we're successfully right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. It looks like Instagram, we have a formatting issue, so we're going to have to look into that.
Yeah, I'd like to know if anybody else is looking at it on Instagram, if somebody can go check to see if they're finding the same problem as I am. You go to Instagram and find Jeff_Echols, and it's in his story. Click the little icon, and you'll see us live. What I'm seeing is the center square of our feed, so it's just the blue and white backgrounds with our shoulders shown.
Okay. And that's a good point. So if you're trying to view it on Instagram, it's my feed right now. So Jeff_Echols, ECHOLS. If you're on Twitch, it'll also be my feed. And this is the second time I've ever been on Twitch. So there's there's nothing other than my feed, but it's still Jeff_Echols. On LinkedIn, it's me. On Facebook, we're in the Entree Architect community Facebook group, and on YouTube, we're on the Entree Architect channel live right now. So, and again, as we move closer to actually dialing this in for the new content offering that Mark was mentioning earlier, as we get towards January, we'll probably clean that up and get these on on very similar platforms.
Yeah,
all the
everything
way
will
across.
probably be on the Entree Architect feeds.
Yeah. So
Also in
but-
Facebook, there is a Facebook page for Entree Architect, and there is a Facebook group. The page is public, and it's there just to sort of publish information that architects are interested in, and there's announcements there for Entree Architect, but there's no community there. The community Facebook group. And so if you go to entrearchitect.com/group, it's a short link that'll get you directly to the group. entrearchitect.com/group. That will get you to the private Facebook group. If you're not a member of that private Facebook group, you have to request membership. There's a few questions that you have to answer, simple questions, just to clarify that you are an architect. Only architects and architecture students. Basically, if you've been trained as an architect, you're welcome to join us. When there is no non-architect activity in there, it is a place for only architects and architecture students, people who are practicing intent. So you can find us there on Facebook.
Yes. So Daniel Stewart, see you over there on YouTube. Thank you for joining us today. He said it looks good.
Yeah.
And he said something is not right on Instagram. So more research we need to do, a little more figuring out. And Rod says he went over to Instagram and requested it, but nothing has happened. So I don't know if there may be. Is there anything I need to do on my end on Instagram?
Yeah, it might be something with the feed, the way you have it set up to be a square rather than full screen.
Okay. I'll have to check that out before.
Javier says that it's just the same square that we're seeing.
Okay, so I'll figure that out by we're going baby steps here. We'll figure that out by next week.
Why there's tests, you know?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Ed Shannon, I see you over there on Facebook. Thanks for joining us. Ed says he's frustrated with Facebook for marketing.
Yeah.
You can't get anyone to accept friends.
Join the club.
Yeah. It's there is a science behind marketing for Facebook. And I'll be honest, it's another reason that we're approaching things in the way that we're approaching things, and doing this kind of live video, live content. I saw a post, and I don't remember which platform it was on, but it might have been on Instagram. Somebody, did one of those posts, said, you're saying that it's harder to market on Instagram now, or harder to stand out, or something like that. And it's always going to be getting harder and harder. The more platforms are accepted, and the more quote unquote mature the platforms get, more people that get on there, it's harder and harder to stand out. And that's one of the things that I love about things like the Entree Architect community, about things like Context and Clarity Live, and this thing that we're doing right now. It's always about engagement. It will always be about engagement. Forever and ever, amen. That's a country song. I don't even know what it is, but that's the beauty of things like this. And it's really hard to create engagement through static post, and even harder through Facebook ads, if that's what we're talking about. That's not a great answer to your, or great response necessarily to your complaint there, but the other part of that, and I see as part in your comment there, Ed, you said you solicited your professional context twice and only got 2 page likes. There are a couple things, I guess. There are a lot of people that don't like Facebook, and Mark just gave out the short link to the Entree Architect community Facebook group. I use that all the time. That's that group inside, or that what do we call it, private group at Facebook, is the only thing that I do on Facebook, period. And there are a lot of people that are like that. So it doesn't surprise me that people won't like your page. Don't take offense to that. I'm sure it's nothing personal from them. It's just that's not what they're doing.
Facebook and Instagram are paid to play. If you want results, you have to pay for it, and the more you pay, the more results you'll get. The way to get around that is create engaging content, right? To create engaging content elsewhere, so you start to attract an audience and a community who starts seeing what you're doing and how you're doing it, and you start finding your audience, your community, the people who like what you're saying and want to be part of the conversation about what you're saying, and that community will then start marketing. They will become your best marketers, right? They will go and share what you're doing and invite their friends to be part of your Facebook group and your Facebook page. It's very difficult to just request, because one of the options, and I think this is what Edward's talking about, is that he sent invitations to all his Facebook, right? He has maybe a couple hundred friends that are in your Facebook circle, and they make it very easy to say, okay, request, send out a post to all your friends to join. Well, we probably get 50 or 60 of those a week, right? And Facebook doesn't show everybody what you've sent them, right? Facebook changes what they see. The only thing that's happening on the Facebook feed is what Facebook decides is on your feed. You can't even control it. You can adjust things, but Facebook is deciding what's on there. And what they're showing you is enough to keep you engaged, enough to keep you hooked into coming back for Facebook, and to provide them with data and to be able to sell things. That's what Facebook is, right? And so if you want to play a game, you can pay for it, and they'll place you right where you want to go. The only way around that is to engage your community somewhere else. Engage your community, provide as much information, engaging conversation, content, definitely live content, or video or audio is going to be more engaged, but you can do it with written content as well. You need to find and do it consistently over and over and over and over again. The Entre Architect thing started in 2012. It started in 2007 with a personal blog, but in 2012, it became a platform. And I've been doing this now with a team since 2012, and it's still not where I want the whole world to know who we are. When we go speak live, and Charette Venture Group used to do this when Todd used to go speak live, he would ask the community, does anybody ever hear of Entre Architect? And very few people in the audience, 100, 200 people in the audience, never knew who we were. Maybe one hand would pop up, right? Maybe now it would be more, but still nowhere near what we want. We want all of the architects to know who we are and what we're doing. And the only way to do that is to keep doing things like this, keep putting the content out there to find an audience who is interested in what you're talking about. And then they will start seeking you out, right? They will start looking for your Facebook page and your Facebook group, and they will request it. It takes a long time, and it takes consistency over and over and over again. It doesn't happen quickly. You have to be very patient, and you have to be very persistent.
The catch-22 of any social media, and this has always been the case, and it will always continue to be the case. But no matter what the platform is, and who knows what new platform is going to pop up in 2021, but the catch-22 is that there are millions of users on all of these platforms. So theoretically, you could get exposure to huge audiences on any or all of these platforms. The problem is that there's millions of people on these platforms that are creating content. And I see Rod's comment there on Facebook about being a teenager and dancing and all of that. And that's, there's a lot of truth to that. And the sick truth to that is, which is, directly to a direct segue to what I was going to say a second ago, is that the only way to build an audience and to build a community is to create engaging content. And what in the world does that mean? It depends on your audience. And when we talk about building a brand, which is a nice little segue, when we talk about building a brand, the one thing that I'll talk about, we've got a new offering here coming out very soon. We had the Build Your Brand workshop back in October, just a couple of months ago now. And the very first step that we talk about in building a brand for architects is understanding who your ideal client is. So if we translate that into social media,
yeah,
what's the audience that you're trying to reach? Is it an audience of your ideal clients, or is it an audience of people in your neighborhood, or whatever it is? There's no judgment here. It's just who's your audience. The idea of engaging content is up to that audience. What do they think is engaging? Do people want to watch teenagers dance? Some do, some don't. If that's the audience you're trying to reach, then you better be a teenager dancing, I guess. But if you understand who your audience is, let's just assume that it's your ideal client, then you've got to figure out what type of content they want. You've got to figure out what's going to bring value to them above anything else. It's got to be about them, right? It's got to be about the problems that they have, the things that they want to consume, the questions that they need to have answered. And that's, there's no easy answer to it, unfortunately, but that is the answer. And it always has been, and it always will be. Some of you know that my part of what I do is my consulting practice called Echo Engagement. There, other than the alliteration there, part of my name, Echols and Engagement, other than that alliteration, what really drove selecting that as the name for my company was the engagement part of it, because that is the singular truth of marketing, of social media, of business development. Yes, definitely for architects, but across the spectrum.
Yeah, and Edward's community is their listeners. That's his community. He has a Facebook group on Facebook for sole practitioners, specifically for sole practitioners. There's lots of sole practitioners in the EntreArchitect group, but Edward is focused primarily on sole practitioners. So first of all, if you're a sole practitioner, go to the group and go join. What I would also say, Edward, is like my link that I promote, entrearchitect.com/group, will get you directly into that group. I can share that link anywhere. If we're on a call like this, if posting somewhere and somebody has a comment, I don't have to go find the link for the Facebook group or say, go to Facebook and search for EntreArchitect. And now they're looking at the Facebook page and the Facebook group and they get frustrated and they never join. They just go to that link and it takes them directly to that group. So if you don't already have a short link for your group, make one. So you can very quickly and easily recommend somebody use that link to get into your group. Right? And it's very easy to share. So if you are somebody who wants to share the Facebook group with a friend, they can say entrearchitect.com/group. Here's the link you need, and no one will ever forget it, right? It's the group for EntreArchitect. entrearchitect.com/group will get you there. And so if you don't have that, make that. And Edward's very, very dedicated to what he's doing. I just pulled this book off my shelf. This is his new book, The Sole Practitioner Architect. You should go buy that as well and read it. He's building a community for sole practitioners, much like we did for small firms in general. He is niching down even closer to just sole practitioners. Sole practitioners practice differently than the rest of us, right? Small firm architects practice differently than large firm architects, which is why we have a community, which is why our community continues to grow, because the AIA and other organizations pretty much ignore us, right? So we have found our own community, And Entree Architect is that community for small firms. Edward's taking that and pushing it even tighter to just sole practitioners because they're different too, right? And they need a place where they can have these conversations just among sole practitioners. And so I applaud you, Edward, for what you're doing. And those are some of the recommendations that I have for you to continue to grow your group.
Yeah. Those are all good. And you said it a few minutes ago. It's a grind. It's it takes time and a lot of content. And that's one of the things, frankly, that a lot of professionals don't like. Oh, look, it's social media. We can find, can find people on social media, et cetera, but it's not a, we're going to do, and I'm not, and this is not a comment about or to Edward. This is just a broad comment. It's not a one and done thing. It's a continual, you may not need to host a week daily mini mastermind group per se, but you do have to continually create things for your fans, for your audience. Think about your favorite band, a rock band or something like that. If some band that you really, really love put out one song or one album, what are they? They're a one-hit wonder, right? But if they put out an album a year or, whatever frequency, I see, especially during COVID, it's interesting to see ways that artists have changed how they put things out. They put something out every year. They put something out on their Instagram or whatever. It's this continual thing. They go on tour maybe every year or every couple of years or something like that. Think about, I'm not saying that you need to be a publicity hound. I'm not saying that you need to try to be famous, but ask yourself, if I wanted to be a rock star or a country star, whatever your genre is, how would I do it? How would I go about becoming like, pick your, insert your famous artist there and start thinking like that. Javier says he's glad that his mentor introduced him to Entree Architect. I'm glad she did as well. And he says, I'm learning so much in the first year of building my firm, and Context and Clarity has been in line with what I'm going through, which is a great segue. I looked this up earlier. I mentioned this. If you've never participated in Context and Clarity Live before, I'll just give you a rundown of what a few topics that we've covered over the last week or so. How do you get into new project types? So maybe you've been doing single family residential and you want to get into multifamily or mixed use, something like that. That was one of the conversations we had. How do you make meaningful connections in 2020 and beyond? The question we tackled on Monday of this week was, do you publish your fees or a range of fees or anything like that on your website or otherwise? How often do you reevaluate and or raise your fees? Yesterday, like I said at the beginning or towards the beginning of our conversation this morning, we talked about how do you avoid burnout? And if you weren't able to avoid it, how did you come back from that? I think that was a pretty important conversation yesterday. And then today's topic that we'll tackle at 4 p.m. Eastern inside the Entree Architect Community Facebook group is, what's a great non-architecture side hustle? So for those that do something else, maybe they have fun with it, maybe they get paid for it, but we're going to talk about side hustles that are non-architectural today. And that could be, what are you doing? It could be, what idea do you have? What do you wish you were doing? It doesn't have to be, this is what I'm doing right now. There's always room for creative thinking in these conversations as well. And I see that Edward also posted inside the Facebook group over there. He says, I'm thinking for residential practice, Houzz is a good platform to write engaging content, but they're very selective about whom they let write articles. I applied to do this a few years ago. led on but didn't get a response. One of the things, and I haven't, to be completely transparent about that, I haven't actually looked at Houzz in a while. When they first came out, I knew a lot about them and their algorithm and how it worked. But the first thing I would ask, whether it's Houzz or any platform, is what are other people doing? What can I do that's different? So can you post a video? Can you create a live video? Can you do something that's a recording of your voice? What's something that's going to be different than what other people are doing? And if Houzz is selective about who it allows to write articles for the main platform, because you want to get people to your page on Houzz, and they have an algorithm as well. All of these platforms, every single one of these platforms has an algorithm. Mark was talking about what Facebook publishes to your friends, your followers, your fans, whatever it's called on the platform. That's all determined by their algorithm. So if you want to get people to your page on Houzz, what can you do? Is there something different that you can do specifically on your page that's more engaging? Because every single one of these platforms, bar none, back to the idea of engagement, every single one of those algorithms rewards engagement above everything else. You could publish 3 articles a day for 3 years in a row, but if you're not getting engagement, they're not going to reward that effort as much as they would if you publish one thing a week and you got tons of engagement on it. So keep that in your mind and think about, is there something that I can do on this platform that's different?
Yeah. And again, it takes consistency and persistence. You have to do it over and over and over again. You can't do one engaging video on YouTube and hope that it's going to start building followers, right? If you're going to and as a professional, I would suggest if you are trying to do this and be an architect, pick one platform, dedicate yourself to that one platform, and be consistent, at least weekly, to provide valuable content for the specific ideal client audience that you are trying to attract. And do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, because at first it won't work, right? But eventually it will work. When I started the Entree Architect podcast, I got 15 listeners, right? Now we have over 50,000 a month, but it took me 350 episodes and 8 years to get there, right? That's my platform of choice that I'm consistent with. I've done it weekly for 8 years, haven't missed, right? So it didn't happen right away. It happened over time, but pick one. Unless you want to dedicate your whole life to it. The reason Entree Architect can be everywhere is because this is my life, right? This is what I've dedicated my life to. I still have a firm. I still practice with small little projects with my wife, but my primary focus and my mission is to grow Entree Architect so every architect in the world knows who we are, right? That takes my entire dedication and my entire consistent persistence to make that happen. And so make sure you're sort of being realistic about what you want to accomplish and understanding what you do want to accomplish, right?
Right.
Followers is not the goal.
No.
Right? Your purpose, your mission is your goal, right? And followers and listeners or whatever it is part of that mission to get your message out. But you need to understand what your purpose is, what your goals are before you do any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I used to speak a lot on social media for architects and do a lot of social media consulting. And the number one question I would get is, what platform should we be on, or what platforms should we be on? Should we be on Facebook? Should we be on Instagram, or whatever? And I think the only, or I think the best answer to that question has to go back to something like, what do you like to do? Do you like to write? Do you like to, are you a photographer? Do you like to take photographs? Do you like to shoot videos? Do you like to be on video? How comfortable are you recording your voice? because whatever your answer to that is will point towards a platform. You know, if it's photography, go to Instagram. If it's video, go to YouTube. If it's your voice, create a podcast. If it's writing, there's all kinds of platforms for that. But the point of all of that is that, and tying this back to what Mark said earlier, you've got to be persistent and consistent. And if you say, you know what, TikTok is the hot new platform, that's where I'm going to be, but I don't like being on video. I can't dance. You don't have to dance to be on TikTok, by the way. There's plenty of content on TikTok that is not dancing, but I don't like to be on video, and I can't express myself in under a minute at any time anyway. Then but that's where we're going to go. If that's what you say, I give you a week and a half at tops before you give it up. But if you say, you know what, I love taking photographs and talking about the meaning of this, or looking at a detail or something like that, go to Instagram, take that photograph, write about the meaning of that or the detail or whatever it is. Because if you already love it, I am much more confident that you'll be able to put together the sustainable effort where you can be consistent and you can be persistent. So I think that's I think that is the first best approach to any of these platforms, and also to building a brand. You've got to have that consistency. You've got to make it about your ideal client. So how do you match up what you love to do, your purpose, with what your ideal client needs and what they want? And how do you mash those things together and get it onto a platform somewhere?
Yeah. Go for Instagram, go check out Christine Williamson's channel, Building Science Fight Club. Yeah. That's her handle, Building Science Fight Club. That's her brand. And go see what she's doing on Instagram. If you want to see how to leverage Instagram, go look at what Christine is doing and subscribe and see what she's doing on Instagram. Also, if you're an architect and you want to experiment with TikTok, you think TikTok can't be done through architecture, go follow Catherine McPhail. Our friend Catherine McPhail is on TikTok now, just a week or so. So there's just a couple little videos on it, but she's doing a great job. House Maven, I think, is her username. If you go search House Maven. She also has a podcast. She's doing a great job with her podcast. Also, the House Maven, I think, is the podcast. So go check both of those, the podcast and the TikTok, and go see what she's doing. She's not on screen. She's not dancing. She's doing things that people who are looking for her ideal client might be looking for on TikTok. And TikTok demographics are rapidly shifting to older people, not old people, not 13-year-olds is what I'm saying. 20 to 60-year-olds. TikTok, within a year, TikTok, the kids are going to abandon TikTok just like they did. They abandoned Facebook a long time ago. They've abandoned Instagram. They're moving to, they're still pretty much on Snapchat, because Snapchat is still sort of the old people left Snapchat when Instagram started copying them, but the kids stayed there. But the kids are on TikTok, right? But the older demographic is moving into TikTok because they see the value of it, and the kids will move on to the next thing. And so TikTok will be a platform that architects will use. You will see. And so if you're interested in the next thing, I believe TikTok is the next thing. It's the thing that will come after Instagram when you want to do these short little engaged videos, because that's where the audience is going. Yeah. Right. The demographic of people who are watching TikTok is changing too. And so if you jump on early now, while there's not a lot of people there, and experiment and do the things that suck, right? By the time your audience shows up, you'll be there. You'll be the first one they find because you're the one that's doing
it. And speaking of Catherine, and I second everything Mark said about Catherine and her channels and things like that. But she also found the hole in my example, the one-hit wonder. You're exactly right, Catherine. That was Catherine being a music person as well. yes, it is true that one-hit wonders often do have a whole catalog that people are not aware of. And you got to give a shout out to Rod's REM reference.
I saw that too.
And so we'll dig into trivia for just a second. That's actually, is it a Dan Rather reference?
Is that what REM was referencing with that?
There was, I think it was Dan Rather. He was in a live news broadcast somewhere. I don't even remember where. And someone came up behind him and said, "What's the frequency, Kenneth?"
I'm sure somebody will.
Rod, I know Rod knows the answer to that, and so he's going to answer that question here momentarily, I'm sure. But
and yes, Catherine, I see your comments. Yeah, you're doing a great job. You're experimenting and you're doing what needs to be done. That's how you get good at it. Go listen to episode 1 of Entre Architect Podcast. Not episode 0. That was okay. Episode 1, my first interview, and you will see how far you come when you do it 350 plus times. You get better at it, right? And so your experimenting with TikTok is fantastic. It's very good.
And one of the things, I'm going to record a video. I don't know if it'll get done this week. It might be next week before I record it, but I'm going to record a video, and the title is going to be something like why professional services firms shouldn't build a brand around professional. It's going to seem a little bit ironic, right? The reason, the thing that I'm going to talk about is the fact that architects, attorneys, engineers, doctors, accountants, they're the professionals. Many of them are licensed. They're the experts. And many times when they want to build a brand, or when they want to do their marketing or social media, whatever context we're talking about, they are so concerned about professionalism. I'm not saying you should be unprofessional. I'm not saying you should push that aside, but they're so concerned with upholding this idea of I'm the expert and I'm the professional, and what they're missing out on, or what they're not understanding or realizing, is that the vast majority of clients are actually looking for an architect, an engineer, an attorney that feels like the right fit, someone that they actually want to entrust their project or their money or their deal making, whatever it is, to someone that they really want to work with. They're not out there. Very, 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 very few people are actually looking for, I want the absolute top expert for this. I want someone I can work with. I want someone that can help me understand these things. I want someone that I can have a conversation with. And so if you flip that into thinking about social media or emails or whatever it is that you're trying to compose or put together, make them engaging, make them understandable, make them something that someone can watch or read, whatever it is, and go, I get this person. I get this firm. This is someone that feels like the right architect for me. That's where you're going to find success. And you can do that on TikTok by not trying to be perfect, by talking about what matters to these clients or whatever it is in a very raw, engaging way. And that's really at the heart of all of these things.
Yeah. The it's not really a cliche, but the saying, everybody wants to work with somebody they know, like, and trust, right? Mm-hmm. We've heard that a million times. Mm-hmm. The trust part of that is becoming more and more important. It's more and more powerful, because our world is starting to become a world that we don't always trust, right? Our news isn't always what they say it is, right? Our politicians are not always saying what, and I don't want to get into all that, but what I'm saying, the reason I'm saying that, the reason I'm bringing that up is that our society is shifting with all of this knowledge and this constant communication, 24 hours a day, all day long, constant communication, constant information. Lots of it is not true, right? Mm-hmm. And so you don't know what to trust and what not to trust. And so before the world that we live in today, when we didn't have constant communication and constant information, we trusted what people told us. And it wasn't really a question, right? The people we worked with, somebody would refer you and you would trust that referral and you'd go and work and you'd be happy. Today, that trust is being broken over and over and over again. And so that trust is becoming more and more highlighted. People are starting to recognize that they need to focus more on trust. And so by you being out there on social media, sharing your knowledge directly with your ideal client, you're building a relationship with that person. And by building that relationship, you are earning their trust, right? And so that trust can lead to a project, that trust can lead to a referral. But that's the one of the biggest pieces of power, one of the biggest elements of social media is that you can build that trust one-on-one without a platform getting in your way, without rules getting in your way, because you can pick whatever platform you want. You can create a community, and then that community is one-on-one, right? It could be an email community, it could be a live group, right? It could be workshops, whatever you want to do. But focusing on that trust is the thing that will be the thing that is the most important as we move forward.
Yeah. That's really, really well put, and those are excellent points. One of the reasons that we used the idea of making deeper connections as a topic for Context and Clarity Live a few days ago was that we're seeing more and more, everything that Mark was just talking about, was just describing, but transparency and vulnerability and accessibility is being rewarded more and more. And I think that's only going to increase, in this moment in time where we are right now, where, like Mark said, trust has been betrayed over and over. There's no better way for me to get comfortable with. And let's face it, if you're an architect, that's kind of a hard sell, right? Whoever it is, no matter what type of project it is that you work on, that you design, it's a big commitment for someone to hire you. And not just monetarily. They're putting their trust, the future of their home, the future of their family, the future of their business, the future of their institution. They're putting that trust in you. And there's no better way to build that trust than for them to be able to have access to you, unencumbered access, transparent access, to be able to, even if it's not literally a conversation, face-to-face conversation, for them to be able to ask a question on a social media post and get an answer to it.
Yeah.
A response to it, or in a format like we're trying out right now, for them to be able to comment live if you do a live stream. If you haven't tried it yet, you ought to try it. But to get an answer, a response to a comment they make. Those kinds of things are driving and will continue to drive and foster more trust, probably than any other way. You're not going to do that by publishing a blog post once a month, right? Or once a year, or
right. You could do it through a blog, but you'd have to be very consistent, and you'd have to somehow engage that audience. Comments and blogs don't work anymore, so you have to really create a place like maybe a Facebook group where the community from the blog can then engage on that content. It's much harder with written content, but it's not dead. There's lots of blogs out there that are super successful and interesting. But back to what you were saying about the social media building trust, that's why Instagram stories are working so well. That's why they've become so popular, because you can engage with the person on Instagram on a regular basis, right? Somebody can post like 4, 5, 6 times a day. That's the concept. Not everybody uses stories that way, but the concept of stories is just your story of your life, right? What do you do as an architect on a daily basis? It doesn't have to be clean and polished. It can be down and dirty. This is what we do, right? And if you do that consistently over time, you will have a following of people following you on Instagram stories to follow you, and you will build a relationship with them and you'll earn their trust. That's why TikTok is exploding, because there's these little 15-second videos that these kids are putting on, hundreds of them every week, right? And so they're building a relationship with an audience with people they trust, right? And so that audience is learning who they are, what they do. Depends on the channel. Some channels are just, creative content, but others are sort of putting themselves out there, being vulnerable. Those are getting comments and building audiences. You can do that same thing as an architect. Share what you do every day as an architect consistently over time, and you will have a following of people who want to engage with you, and you will build trust with them.
Yeah, I'll share. I was just looking at the time. We probably ought to wrap this up at some point soon, but
I have a question about that before we wrap up. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, ask the question now and give everybody time to respond.
Well, my question is that we have plans to do this on a regular basis. We're going to do Context and Clarity live stream out to the world in January. It will start. And it's going to be a weekly basis. We don't know what the actual day and time it will be yet. Probably not 10 o'clock on a Friday, because the West Coast is sleeping at 10 o'clock Eastern time, or just getting up. But it'll be weekly. It'll be consistent every week. It'll be live streamed across the internet. It's kind of interesting, this informal format, where you and I just sort of sit and talk about whatever we want to talk about, right? And I could imagine that if you had an expert and you sort of have this deep dive conversation, but it's not a super formal deep dive conversation. It's more like Evan's doing on Troxel Podcast. Another plug, go subscribe to Troxel Podcast, TRXL. Evan is having, over an hour long conversations with people who are changing the world of architecture through technology. Those conversations go wherever they go. And so it might be interesting to format this conversation with that expert in a very wherever the conversation goes type of conversation. Focusing on the topic, obviously, but also letting it go wherever it needs to go. And the question is that something that should be a 1 hour show, and at 1 hour we wrap up because our time is up? Or would it be interesting, and this is, this becomes a bigger commitment, but to go as long as it needs to go, right? And not have an end time, not have a 60-minute deadline. Okay, we have to wrap up our conversation. But if the conversation is going somewhere, let it go. And maybe it becomes an hour and a half long conversation. Maybe it's a 2 hour long conversation. The question to our community out there, and you can post the answer to this even after we are no longer live. You can post in the comments below. What's your thought on the format of that concept? Should it be a polished 60-minute interview with live interaction, which is what our original concept was? Or should it be a little bit more free form and it goes as long as it goes and you sort of put it on in the background while you work? And if it's a 2 hour long conversation, as long as that 2 hour conversation is engaging and interesting and you're learning from it, is 2 hours okay? Or is 2 hours too long? And I'm not saying it should be a 2 hour long conversation every week. My question is, should it have an open-ended end each week? It will definitely be every week, and it'll be every day, same day, same time. But should it be more freeform, or should it be more polished and, committed? I know you certainly have a thought on that, seeing that it's going to be your show and you're the host, but you don't tend to have a problem with having these conversations and letting them go. Because you and I do it every week on and off this call, and we could easily talk all day long.
Oh yeah. We could leave this. So it could be very Twitch-ish.
Yeah.
Because for those of you that aren't familiar, if you go to Twitch, some of these it's primarily gamers, but you're watching them play whatever video game it is that they play. And I apologize to the Twitch world if I didn't use the proper terms there, but some of those streams can be just ongoing. I do think it's a really interesting thing that we need to consider. And as you were talking about it, I was just thinking about the fact I have a little indicator up here in the upper left corner that shows me or is reporting how many people are watching live right now. And we're actually close to the peak right now. It's ebbed and flowed as we've gone, which means people are discovering and they're staying for a while and they're leaving. What's that?
The West Coast is sitting down to work.
They're waking up. Yeah, and we may have a churn, right? We may have a complete turnover of people participating. But I think it is an interesting idea. And the thing that I would hate is to say, we're going to do this for X,
right,
30 minutes or an hour or whatever, and have this feeling that we're 58 minutes and we've got to wrap this up in 2 minutes, but we
just started.
We haven't finished. So I'd be open to it being free form. So Catherine said going as long as it needs to go. She knows where that will end up. Catherine has been a participant of Context and Clarity Live from day one. And Catherine remembers, and I know that she commented and has before, Context and Clarity Live started as a half hour.
Yeah.
And then it evolved into an hour. It needed to go to an hour. It could keep going, certainly. But yeah, we could make it free form. Obviously we'd have to put a limit on it at some point.
Yeah. You'd sort of have to, your target is an hour, I would say.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it's not a deadline, right? It doesn't have to be packaged into a 1 hour package.
Right.
Like a podcast, you want to be consistent with your time so people recognize what they're going to get. But I think with something like this, where it's all over the internet on every feed, it's just there for you to grab when you want to, and you could watch parts of it and come back to it. You can put it on live while you're working and just listen to the conversation. And if it's an hour-long conversation, what does it make a difference if it's a half hour or an hour and a half?
Yeah.
Some of the greatest radio shows ever are 2-3 hours long, right? Mm-hmm. The talk shows that we all grew up with weren't 1 hour. They were 3 hours for a reason. They had segments, right? Howard Stern, the talk show, the radio talk show hosts, the greatest interviewers in our history, all had long format shows that would allow them to go as deep as they wanted to and not really be tied to a certain time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, I would hate to be digging into a topic and have, the best expert that we could get on that topic and get to, some point where we need to wrap it up and somebody asks a really great question and not be able to dig into that question and get a response from that whoever it is that's the guest for that week, just because we were running out of time. So I think, and the reference of radio shows is Mark and I have talked about this online and off, but to me it's super interesting because even though this is, we're not on the bleeding edge, people have been doing this for a while, but even though this is relatively new technology and a new idea of streaming across all of these platforms, there's something very retro about all of this as well.
Yeah.
And in fact, by next week, we're going to do this again next Friday. by next week, we're going to figure out how to get phone calls into this conversation. And so again, it's on our list. We've got to figure some things out yet. But we're going to open up a phone line next week somehow and let people dial into this. So we'll see. Maybe this does become, and Catherine says we can leave it on all day. It'd be like working in an office. I
love that idea. I mean, that's a huge commitment, right? Mm-hmm. But I love that idea, the concept of that, where we have this ongoing feed that never shuts off, right? Maybe it's an 8-hour long show. Maybe it's not one host.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe it's more like a radio that there's a host in the morning, and then there's something that happens in the afternoon, and then there's a drive time host in the afternoon, and that's a really cool concept where you want Entree Architect feed and it will be there for you anytime, during the day.
Yeah.
Or maybe not even during.
Yeah, we'd have
maybe it becomes a 20-hour live feed channel. Who knows? It's a cool idea. I think we would have to work our way to that, but and our lives probably.
Well, yeah, I mean there would be some logistical issues with that. John Kinney asks about it being ongoing, but would it also be recorded? And so the answer to that is yes. I think right now, still we're a little bit unclear about what's going on with Instagram, but at least on the other 4 channels that we know of, these will be recorded and will stay. Different platforms have different rules and such. With Twitch, it'll expire after a certain number of days, et cetera. But and there will be recording length limitations, but they're pretty robust. I mean, some of them are like 24-hour limits, and as much as I'd love to try, I don't think I'd make it 24 hours. So we probably won't hit those limits. But yeah, we'll continue to flush this out. And again, this is meant to be a question for all of you that are out there. What do you think? What would you want to consume? Kevin Costello. Hi, Kevin. Kevin says 8 hours a day. Yeah, well, we could do that. Catherine says sounds like Twitch is the way, or Catherine Gunn. Catherine says sounds like Twitch is the way to go based on the characteristics people want: freeform, chat box, recorded content. Yeah, and so just so everybody understands what we're doing right now is kind of coming full circle. We're streaming this live through a live streaming platform called Restream. And so it's shooting this out to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch. And then what it does in turn is it aggregates the comments back to us. So we actually see a live comment feed here on our stream, or on our screen inside Restream. And so we see the comments here without having to have all these platforms open. We do have some challenges. Like we said, Facebook is not going to give us the username. So right now I have Facebook open so I can see whose names go with the comments. But it seems like the technology is pretty good here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it works well. Lots of cool ideas too today.
Yeah. Yeah, we appreciate all of those. And thank you all for showing up, and thank you all for participating, and for sharing, and for supporting this. And we'll be back again same time next week, right? Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah, we'll do another test, see what else we can figure out.
Okay. And we'll have a phone number by then. And we'll figure out how to publish that phone number, or maybe we just publish it live next week, and whoever shows up can use it.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. Put it on the bottom third there.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll be looking for some of you to try that out, to call in and see how that works out. But But above everything else, we're, like I said earlier, we're trying to expand and trying to continue to build this community, and Mark and I are having some fun too. So there's that aspect of it. So we appreciate all of you joining in on our fun here.
Yeah, I want to just throw a pitch out there, 2 pitches. If you like what Jeff and I do, I'm going to have just a blatant cold pitch here. In order for us to do what we're doing here at Entre Architect, it costs money. This is a business, right? And so if you want to give back, if you like what we're doing, if you want to give back, join the membership on Entre Architect. You can go to entrearchitect.com/join, and you can join the membership. Tons of value in there. It's worth every penny of it. If you like what we're doing, that will help us fund what we're doing, right? The other thing is that Jeff and I are working on the Build Your Brand course, which is coming out hopefully next week. We think it's going to come out next week, wrapping up a couple of technology things with it. But it is the content from the workshop. It is the Build Your Brand workshop content built into a self-directed course. You won't have the community, you won't have the live one-on-one interaction with Jeff and me, but it's the content and a workbook. And so you can go through it on your own. That's going to be offered next week at a very reasonable price. And so also consider buying that. That will help fund Entre Architect and what we're doing, but it will also help you build the firm that you want to build, right? That's why we're doing this whole thing, right? We're not doing this just to have a great conversation. We're doing this to help you build a stronger business, because Jeff and I believe that when individual architects become financially successful, the profession gets stronger. And when the profession gets stronger, the world benefits from that. And so this is the way that Jeff and I can give back to the world, by helping you build individual businesses. And so it's not a get rich quick scheme, I can tell you that. But we're trying to build content and resources and products that can help you build stronger businesses, so you can be happier, so you can be more financially successful. So really do please consider joining the membership, buying a course, whatever you can do financially to help us continue to do what we're doing. That helps us greatly. So just wanted to throw that out there at the end. It helps tremendously when you throw some money our way. So thank you very much for being part of the community and for helping support the community and helping us do what we do here.
Yes, indeed. Thank you all. And, I close out Context and Clarity Live every day by thanking everybody that has participated in that conversation. And that is a completely sincere thanks. And it is extended here today as well, because yes, we're here. We're having this conversation. We're hosting this, but it's facilitation. It's giving you a platform to participate in, and from that platform, you're building everything on top of that. All of your questions, all of your comments, all of your support for fellow architects and fellow community members is what makes this successful and what makes it a thing. Context and Clarity Live. The first Context and Clarity Live, and John Kinney, there he goes. He's commented again. I know in my heart that John Kinney has a calendar on his wall where he's marking off all the Context and Clarity Live days, and so he will give me the update. We just passed 8 months of Context and Clarity Live, and there's no way that we would have passed probably a week or two without all of you. And this goes right back to the conversation we were having earlier. I could get on here day after day after day and talk about a topic, and there's no way that it would be as successful. There's no way that it would be as impactful. There's no way that it would build community without all of you adding to it and bringing your ideas, your opinions, your experience, your expertise, your wisdom to it. So I thank all of you for joining us here today, and I'll be on Context and Clarity Live at 4 p.m. Eastern today. Just go to the Entre Architect community, the Facebook group, and we'll do that. John Kinney says 8 months, 5 days now. Thanks, John.
I was waiting for you to see the comment.
Yeah.
8 months, 5 days.
Yeah. Awesome. But that's because of all of you. That's not because of me. Yes, I show up day after day, but it would be really easy for me to show up and there be no one there. and that would not last 8 months and 5 days. So, so thank you all, and we'll be back again next Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, on this simulcast with the phone added in next week. We'll see how that works out, and I'll be on Context and Clarity Live at 4 p.m. today. And of course, you can check out Mark in the Entre Architect podcast whenever and wherever you want to, however you consume podcasts. Or, he's mentioned several podcasts today, giving shout outs to those. If they're a Gable Media podcast like Troxel or Entre Architect or
Build Your Brand
Interrupted or Build Your Brand or any of those, you can go to Gable Media, GABLmedia.com, and find all of those in one spot. But you can consume them anywhere. If you're an Apple person, if you're a Spotify, whatever, you can go to those platforms and you can find them. Audible now as well. So check those out, and look for some Build Your Brand videos to come out here in the next week or so.
Yeah, we didn't mention that. We have some free branding training coming out before the course. It's sort of giving you a little taste of what the course is going to be. That's going to be free, and that's valuable training. That will help you whether you buy the course or not. Watch for that. That'll be coming out next week as well. Yeah,
3-part series. Like Mark said, free. It'll give you the mindsets and the foundations for building a powerful brand for your architecture firm. And of course, if you want to dig deeper on that, then also coming next week, the Build Your Brand course will be available, and that will be a paid offering. But that'll allow you to dig deeper and walk through step by step on building your own brand. So, with that, thanks, Mark. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you, Jeff. This is fun. You and I could easily keep going forever. So I think we wrap things up. Thank you for all you do for the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it. All of you think we're going to hit stop and it's going to be over, but we may just stay here, Mark, and I just talk the rest of the day.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again next week.